Welcome to Hollywood Insiders. I'm your host, Hawk Koch. I've been working in the entertainment business for a very long time and have been involved with, I think, some pretty good movies. I got lucky, real lucky. My heart is out of my chest. I'm looking, is Robert Redford gonna murder me? Did about 12 takes till Jack finally said, "That's it. That's enough." And when you watch the movie, take one is in the film. The most technical director that I ever worked with was, and I hope you'll see why I think, for me, it's been a magic time. Hello, and welcome to Hollywood Insiders. I'm so happy you've joined us. This show will go deep with questions to directors, producers, writers, executives, and all kinds of creatives. Why they chose the film or the TV show, how do they feel and react when it goes well, when it doesn't go so well? What is the best and worst part of their job? I'm your host, Hawk Koch, former president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and former president of the Producers Guild of America. I've been working in the entertainment business for a very long time and have been involved with, I think, some pretty good movies. Rosemary's Baby, Chinatown, Heaven Can Wait, Marathon Man, Wayne's World, Primal Fear, and a whole bunch of others. I've been involved with some pretty darn good directors like Sidney Pollack and Roman Polanski and Alan Pakula and Paul Mazursky and Robert Benton, Taylor Hackford, James Bridges. I've worked with some great producers like Robert Evans, Hal B. Wallace, Mark Gordon, John Houseman, and Howard W. Koch, who you'll find out about in a minute. I wrote a memoir. It's called Magic Time. Why is it called Magic Time, people ask me? Well, really simple. 3 reasons. Number one, when I was a young kid, I came to my father's movie set for the first time. I was actually 4 years old, and I was scared stiff of leaving my mom because I never really saw my dad very much, but he drove me with a whole bunch of other people out onto a movie set in Durango, Colorado, and all of a sudden I saw teepees and horses and cowboys and cavalry, and it was amazing. I get out of the car, this shy little kid, and all of a sudden I was running around, and some Indian put me on his knee, and turned out his name was Ricardo Montalban, and he was in Native American costume. Somebody picked me up and put me on a horse, and I rode around with some guy. I didn't know who he was, but man, I got to ride a horse at 4 years old. When I got home that night, my father said to my mother, "Guess who gave little Howie his first horseback ride?" Well, it was Clark Gable. Yeah, that was a magical time, and being on a movie set for me has always been magical. Being in a movie theater has been magical. And I got to work, very fortunate, got to work with Jack Lemmon on a movie called The Odd Couple and another one called The April Fools. Jack Lemmon, when he was making a film called The Days of Wine and Roses, he played an alcoholic, and every time that he took a drink, he'd go, "Magic time," and he'd take a drink. Well, he used that mantra, magic time, from then on in the rest of his movies. Because what would happen is if he was off thinking about something else and the AD yelled roll, he would say magic time, and boom, he'd get right back focused into the character that he was supposed to be playing. I watched him do it for 2 movies. And what I did with that is I took that magic time, because when I was on a movie set and the AD yelled roll, I said to myself, not out loud like Jack Lemmon did, magic time. And I focused whatever my job was on that particular scene. So between those 3, that's how magic time came to be. Let me tell you a little bit about being in the entertainment business. What you need is luck. Yeah, luck. You also need timing. That luck has to come at exactly the right time. And then you need talent. You need to be good at whatever it is you're doing. And then the 4th thing is luck again. I got lucky. I got lucky, real lucky. When I was 19 years old, I had worked with rock and roll people, but I got a job on a movie down in Mississippi as what they call a PA, a production assistant. And on the first day of shooting, the first AD, the first assistant director, quit at like 10 o'clock in the morning. The second assistant director had to become the first assistant. Well, this was 1965, and there weren't a lot of other assistant directors. So they said to me, hey, you're no longer a PA, you're the second AD today. Well, I'd been on movie sets, again, as you heard, from the time I was 4 years old. So all of a sudden, I was a second AD and I was running around, A, having a great time, but B, using all the knowledge that I had. I was lucky. The timing was right. I had some talent as an assistant director. And as I said, I was lucky. So I'm running around, and a few days of doing this, I'm in the bathroom one day and I'm in a stall, and two guys walked in. I don't know if they're grips, electricians, prop men, whoever they were. One of them said to the other, hey, you know, the only reason that kid Koch got the job is because his dad is head of Paramount Studios. Well, my heart sank because it's true. My dad was head of Paramount. It wasn't a Paramount movie. It was a Seven Arts film. But my heart sank and I thought, wow, yeah, I'm only here because of my dad. Then the other man said, yeah, he probably did get the job because of his dad, but he's real good at what he's doing and he's working real hard. So why don't you give him a break? And I thought at that moment, I had to work harder than anybody else because I wanted to prove that I could be good at this job or any job in the entertainment business, not because of my father, but because of myself. So that was a real start. And I had a great opportunity to be lucky and smart and talented. In the first few days of shooting, I was told to go get Natalie Wood from her trailer. Well, I was in love with Natalie Wood, as was everybody at that time. She was the biggest star. The film was called This Property is Condemned and starred Natalie and a young actor in his second movie that not many people had heard of. His name was Robert Redford. So I didn't walk down to what we call base camp where the trailers are. And I knocked on Natalie Wood's trailer. And I heard, yes. And I said, oh, we're ready for you. And she said, oh, I'll be out in a little while. And I don't know where it came from, but I just said, oh, well, James Wong Howe, the cinematographer who had 17 Oscar nominations, James Wong Howe said the light is perfect. Well, Natalie opened the door, took my arm. We walked up to the set. She walked over to the director, Sidney Pollack, and to Redford and started working. And everybody came up to me and said, how did you get Natalie out of her trailer? She never comes out of her trailer on the first ask. And I said, I don't know. I just told her the light was perfect. Well, I've used that with every actor and actress my entire career, and it works. So that's a quick Natalie Wood story. I have another story about that movie. As I said, Redford in his second film, and we became friends. I was 19. I think Bob was about 25 or 26. We threw the football around. We played golf on Sundays. And when we finished shooting in Mississippi, we came back to Los Angeles, and we're shooting in LA. And Bob comes up to me one day and says, hey, you know, I bought some land up in Utah, and I want to drive up there this weekend. You want to drive up with me? We'll leave Friday night after shooting, and we can share the driving, and we'll have all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and Sunday night, hopefully you can drive most of the way back because I got to be ready to shoot on Monday morning. I'm 19, 20 years old. Sure. You kidding? That'd be fun. So sure enough, 7 o'clock Friday night, we get in the car, drive about 5 hours. Redford's driving. We stop in Vegas. We have a bite. Then it's my turn to drive. And we drive about 2 hours outside of Vegas. We're on not super highways in those days, but it was a good road. We're driving, and all of a sudden Redford says to me, Pull off the road. Get on that side road. Why, Bob? I mean, we've got a long way to go. Pull off the road. Okay, man, I'm a little worried, and pull off on the side road, and we're driving on this side road for a minute or two, and he says, turn there. I said, Bob, that's a dirt road. There's not. He said, turn. Man, I'm getting really scared now. I turn on the dirt road, and all of a sudden he says, stop the car, and he takes the gear shift, puts it in park, grabs the keys, and says, get out. Well, you know those cartoons when the heart is, my heart is out of my chest. I'm looking, is Robert Redford going to murder me? What the hell is going on? He gets out on one side of the front hood. I get out on the other side. I'm looking at him, and all of a sudden he screams for about 45 seconds. And then he smiles at me and he laughs. He throws me the keys and says, get in. Come on, we'll go back on the main road. Whew. I thought I was dead. And Redford proceeded to explain to me as we were driving that it was something called a primal scream that this man, Arthur Janoff, had invented. And he said it's a great way to relieve stress. So, okay, that's my first Redford story. I said before that my father was Howard W. Koch. I was, as I said, also the former president of the Motion Picture Academy, as was my father. My father was president in the 1970s. I was president in 2012. And my father also was known as the nicest man in Hollywood. He was a legend. Everybody loved him. And in 1989, he was given an Oscar, which is right back there, called the Gene Hersholt Honorary Oscar. And it's a humanitarian award given by the Board of Governors, and it's not given every year. And he was voted this pretty amazing award. And on the Oscar show in 1989, he got up on the stage to be given the award by Walter Matthau. And when he was talking, he surprised me by saying he was hoping that one day his son, me, could get up and be on that Oscar stage.
Howard Jr., who hopefully will be standing right on the stage one day receiving his Oscar.
Well, I got the chills. It was pretty amazing. And wouldn't you know it, in 2013, as I'm president of the Academy, I'm going to go up on that Oscar stage like my father hoped I would. And about 15 minutes before it's my turn to get up there, I'm sitting in the audience and the stage manager comes and gets me backstage. And what did I do? Well, the first thing I did was leave the Dolby Theater, go outside into the fresh air, and do a 45-second primal scream that Redford had taught me. And it relieved the stress. And then I came back in, I'm in the wings, and when my name was announced, I said to myself, magic time. And I focused on what it was that I was about to say in front of an audience of 1.3 billion people. And I wasn't nervous because I looked down, and in that audience in the front rows were all people that I had worked with, I had known my whole life, and they were there to support me. It was emotional and pretty good. Another question you might have is, well, your father's Howard W. Koch. Where'd the name Hawk come from? Well, a lot of people have asked that question. My name used to be Howard W. Koch Jr. And as I said earlier, my father was a legend. He was also the most loved man in Hollywood. How do I know that? Come on. Well, from the time I was little, no matter where I was introduced, hi, this is my son, little Howie. Oh, you must be so proud. Your father's the greatest man. He's so loved. You know what he did for me? You know what he did for my wife, for my sister, for my cousins? He got me a job. This happened not once a month or once a week or once a day, but happened every day, all the time. I didn't have to be introduced. Howard Howard Koch Jr. Oh, I know your dad. Boy, what a man. Well, that went on not just when I was a kid, but through my whole career. I'm 49 years old. I've been through a couple of marriages and quite a few relationships. And a relationship I had been in kind of folded and I didn't see it coming and I was in pretty bad shape. I had always wanted to be in a real strong relationship with a woman. And so I'm having lunch with a buddy of mine, a Catholic friend of mine. And I said, Gary, I got to do something spiritual for my 50th birthday, not just looking for another relationship. And he said to me, I know you've never been bar mitzvahed, and I've been to all your children's bar and bat mitzvahs. Is it possible to get bar mitzvahed at 50? And I said, Gary, I don't know. What a great idea. So I called around, as a producer would, and found a rabbi, a wonderful rabbi by the name of Rabbi Jonathan Omerman. And I went to meet him on Wilshire Boulevard in the Miracle Mile in Los Angeles in a little office. And I went in and waited for him. He came in on crutches because he had had polio in Israel when he was a kid. And that's the way he lived. And we sat down with one another, and I kind of told him about my life. And about a half hour in, he said to me, who are you? And I said, oh, I'm a movie producer. He said, no, 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 no. Who are you? And I thought for a moment. I said, oh, I know what you're looking for. I'm a father and I'm a son. Then he kind of got a little angry. So who are you? And I don't know where it came from because I really had very little religion in my life. I said, I'm a Jewish man. And he said, that's a start. He said, what's your Hebrew name? Now, I don't know if you know, but every Jew is given both a Christian name and a Hebrew name. And I said, my parents were non-religious and I never had a Hebrew name. He said, well, for your 50th birthday, you'll be given your own name. Well, I broke down. What? I can have my own name? And I said, I can have my own name? And a rabbi said, yes, you can have your own name. Whoa, was I taken aback. He said to me, you can get bar mitzvahed at any age. You can get bar mitzvahed at 80, as long as you're 13. You can't get bar mitzvahed before you're 13. But from then on, you can get bar mitzvahed. So I said, geez, I want my own name. And he said, you can have it. What do you want to be called? Do you want to be called Frank or Jerry or Sheila or William? What do you want to be called? And I said, man, I don't know. He said, did you ever have a nickname? And my initials were HWK, and I used to write them down on, school books as a little kid. And a few people called me Hawk. And he said, wow, do you know anything about hawks? And I said, yeah, bird of prey. He said, well, hawks mate for life. And I said, I've been trying to do that my whole life. Didn't work. I said, but that'd be a good one to try for. He said, also, hawks can see from horizon to horizon and like a squirrel a half a mile away. Wouldn't it be great if you could see the panoramic of your life and the detail always at the same time? And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool, but isn't Hawk a pretentious name? He said, only if you allow it to be. And I thought, wow, can I, at 50 years old with 3 kids, change my name? I had a career. Everybody knew me as Howard Koch Jr. Could I do that? And I went up to Telluride, Colorado, and while up there, there was a Native American who was selling little trinkets. And there was a little silver trinket that had the word listen on it and a cloud and a lightning bolt. And I said to him, what does that mean? And he said, do you know the way we listen, how awake and attuned and aware we are between the lightning and the thunder? And wouldn't it be great if you could be that awake and aware and attuned, not just between the lightning and the thunder, but throughout your life? And I thought, wow, I bought that little trinket. I wore it around my neck my whole life. And that gave me the permission for the A to go with my initials, HWK. And that's how I became Hawk. I got bar mitzvahed for my 50th birthday in front of my whole family, friends. It was quite something, quite something. Now, as I said before, we're going to go deep with our people that we're going to interview. And one of the questions that everybody asks me, and everybody asks everybody, what is a producer? What do you mean by a producer? What does a producer do? Well, I would say a producer is an entrepreneur. He's the person that starts the entire process of making a film or a television show. He's the person that reads a book and goes, wow, I see how this could be a great movie. Reads a script that somebody else wrote. Reads an article in a newspaper and you go, oh, man, that would make a great movie. Or is at a dinner party and somebody tells a story, a social story, and you go, wow, that's kind of universal. That gets me in the gut. Maybe that's something I could do. And you somehow get the rights, you option the rights, you buy the rights, you talk to your friends, and you find a way to hold on to that particular story. And then what you do is you find a writer, or you find a director, or you find a writer and a director who have the same vision of that particular story that you do, and you bring them in to your tent. You go to a studio or an independent financer and find someone who will finance what we call the development of the movie or the television show. So now you've got a writer, you've got some money to develop it, and you develop, meaning you take the book, the newspaper article, the screen, whatever it is, and you develop it and get it as good as it can be. And once you and the director and the writer and the studio or the financer feel that it's good enough, then you move towards what we call a green light. And that's called pre-production. And in pre-production, you budget the movie. The studio or the financer says, I will make this for X millions of dollars. So you budget it. And then once that budget's approved, at the same time, you're looking for cast. And in order to make the studio or the financer get a green light, you've got to cast it with people that the studio or the independent financer believes is going to bring an audience in. So you've got a story, now you've got a cast, and you're working on getting your crew, the best cinematographer you can find, the best production designer. You've already hired your casting director who you're working with. So production designer, cinematographer, sound, your assistant director, which is what I used to be. You get an entire crew together. And when you get that green light, now you're out of pre-production. And by the way, one thing in pre-production and one thing in life, prep is everything. I don't care what you do, no matter what business you're in, if you're not prepped for a meeting, for going to the market, right? You prep going to the market. You write out your list of what you need at the market. That's what you do in pre-production. And production, you're actually making the movie. I kind of think about it for someone who doesn't know. Think about, I'm going to prepare a meal. Okay, now you're in pre-production. I'm going to prepare that meal. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to write everything down that I need to make this meal. Then I'm going to go to the market and I'm going to go everywhere and I'm going to get everything I need for the meal, right? Going to the market is in fact what I call production. You're finding the right lettuce, the right meat, the right garlic powder, whatever it is. Then you come back and you actually make the meal. Making the meal is post-production. You are editing. You're taking this amount of meat, this amount of garlic, this amount of tomatoes, and you're editing and you're putting that meal together and you're hoping you're cooking it, right? Now, while you're cooking it, you might taste it. And by the way, that's what a preview is. The preview, once you have a cut of your film, you have a preview. And like tasting, you ask somebody, hey, taste this. Is this got enough salt on it, enough pepper? Is it blah, 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 blah? Well, we preview the movie and we go and show it to an audience. And we ask that audience, hey, was it any good? Did you laugh? Where did you laugh? Where was it serious? What didn't you like? And that's post-production. And we do that in post. Now, while that's all going on, the producer, remember, that's me, the producer is overseeing all of this. He is questioning every single thing that's happening during pre-production, production, and post. He's also working with the marketing people and the distribution people as to when that movie's going to come out. How are we going to market this movie? In today's world, how are we going to do it on social media, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff? And how are you still going to market it? What's the trailer going to look like? The producer is in charge of all that from the production standpoint, and the studio or the financer is in charge, and the two of us work together. And then finally you go to the premiere, and finally the movie opens. And I'll never forget working on a movie called Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty. It was the first time he directed a film, and I was his assistant director and his executive producer. And the night it opened, we went into Westwood Village to a movie theater at that time called the National, and we snuck in at the beginning of the movie, and we stood in the back of the theater, and we listened to this audience laugh and cry and have the best time and applaud at the end of the movie. And boy, does that feel great. And I've also been in the back of a theater where the theater wasn't full and nobody laughed and nobody cried and the picture was a dog. And boy, you work just as hard on the bad ones as you do on the good ones. And like they say in baseball, you win some, you lose some, and some are rained out. And the ones that are rained out are the ones you worked so hard of developing. You believed so much on it, and yet no studio and no executive, no financer would ever make that movie. And I've got a drawer full of those that I never got made. So that's a little bit deeper as to what a producer does, and I hope that's something that you like and that it helps you understand what a producer does. Let's see what a producer does when he's on a film and he has to produce. Doing this film, Heaven Can Wait. Don't know if you saw it, but if you didn't, hopefully you will. But in the movie, Warren Beatty plays a quarterback who wins the Super Bowl at the end of the movie. And he wins it by having a play similar to what they call the Immaculate Reception, which was a Pittsburgh Steeler immaculate reception in a playoff game in the 1970s against the Oakland Raiders, where I think it was Terry Bradshaw threw a pass. It hit somebody in the helmet. It went up in the air. Franco Harris caught it and ran for a touchdown to win the game. So that's how we're going to win this game. Well, we have to put on a Super Bowl, right? And it has to look real. This is way before CGI or anything. We had to do it real. This is 1977. So the first thing we do is we go to Pete Rozelle, who was the commissioner of the National Football League, and we get permission to use the uniforms and the Rams and anybody else. We go to the owner of the Los Angeles Rams, who at the time was Carol Rosenblum, and we get approval to be able to shoot, to film at halftime of a real football game. And it happened to be a night game between the Rams and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we got permission from Carol Rosenblum. We got to do it. But then Carol Rosenblum put me together with, I think it was his general manager, a guy by the name of Jack Teal. And Jack said, now listen, you're going to use my halftime for this Super Bowl stunt? And I said, yeah, Jack. He said, we always give great halftime entertainment here at a Ram game. And how do I know you're going to have great entertainment? I said, well, I think the fans are going to love that the Rams win the Super Bowl. Well, yeah, but we have great bands, we have cheerleaders, we do all kinds of stunts. And I said, well, I'm going to try, Jack. I hope that I come through for you. So now it's time for us to have our Super Bowl halftime. And as the gun goes off at the end of the first half of the real Ram-Steeler game, those guys run off, and my guys and my referees and my yardstick guys and all the extras come onto the field so it looks like a real Super Bowl. In those days, we used zoom lenses. And the announcer says, don't go away, fans, because tonight at halftime, the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. We get everybody cheering, and we got 6 cameras going. We start on a close-up of Warren Beatty in his helmet, in his uniform, in the huddle. And we zoom back as they come out of the huddle, and we see, holy shit. The stands are full. This is a real Super Bowl. How did Warren Beatty get in a real Super Bowl? And he gets the ball and he throws the ball. And sure enough, it hits somebody in the head. The ball comes back to Warren. We've, by the way, rehearsed this forever. And Warren runs 50 yards to win the Super Bowl. And the rest of his team comes out, puts him on his shoulders. When you see the movie, you'll see it real. Well, we did that about 5 or 6 times. Warren was exhausted at the end of running 50 yards 5 or 6 times. But it was fantastic. And we got a whole bunch of other scenes that we needed in that 14 minutes. Now it's over. The real Rams come on. We go off. Now it's the second half, and we've got nothing to do during the second half. When the fans leave after the game, we're going to shoot down onto the field so nobody sees that there's nobody in the stands to do the rest of the stuff. So Jack Teal comes down to me, and I'm pretty proud because, my God, the fans were cheering. They loved it. So I said to Jack, hey, Jack, what do you think? He said, terrible. Terrible? What are you talking about? Terrible. He said, worst halftime show I've ever had. Jack, what are you talking about? The fans loved it. He said, yeah, the fans loved it. But nobody went out and bought hot dogs. It was the lowest concessions we've ever had at halftime. No matter what you do, you can't win. But I produced that Super Bowl halftime. And when I look at that movie, I know that producer, me, put together that halftime show. And it sold at the end of the movie. That's a little thing about what a producer does. Something else that I'm very proud of, and when you go to the movies these days, when you see the credit at the end or at the beginning and it says produced by and has a name, there's a little P.G.A. Everybody says, what's that mean? People ask me, what does that PGA mark mean? Well, a lot of people try to take a producer credit without actually producing the movie. You've heard what a producer does. Well, some people negotiate a deal. Some actors, friend, brother, sister, hey, in order for him to do a movie, he wants a producer credit. A director who has never directed before says, well, I want a producer credit too. Or the agent for somebody says, in order for this person to be in the movie, or in order for something to happen, he's got to have a producer credit. Well, my partner and I at the time, Mark Gordon, were presidents of the Producers Guild, and we thought, you know what? We've got to find some way to connote who the real producer is, who actually did the work, and people who negotiate a producer credit. And it started way back in the late 90s when a movie called Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture, Oscar. And seven, or I think five, six, or seven producers got up and everybody went, wait a minute, all these people produced this movie and they all got Oscars. And the Academy said, wait a minute, no more than three. And I was at the Producers Guild at the time, and Kathy Kennedy was our president, and we got together and we said, we need a set of criteria to set up what a producer does. And we set this criteria. We went to a meeting at Kathy's house with I'd say about 15 or 20 great Hollywood producers who were all producing films at that time. And we came up with a set of criteria for pre-production, for development, pre-production, production, and post-production. And we gave it certain percentages. And we said, unless you've done a majority of those functions, you can't get producer credit and win an Oscar. You can't win a Producers Guild Award. You can't win a Golden Globe or a BAFTA. And we did it, and we set up this arbitration process. And the Academy agreed with us, and the Academy for years now have been using the Producers Guild arbitration process to decide who are the real producers. Well, when Mark Gordon and I were at the President's, Vance Van Patten, our executive director, said, what about a good housekeeping seal of approval? Meaning the P.G.A. Doesn't mean you're a member of the Producers Guild. What it means is you produced this movie. A group of your peers arbitrated and said, you were the real producer. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 producers on a movie in today's world, but there aren't 10 or 20 producers who deserve it. So next time you look at the movie or you see the credits in a poster, the little PGA, you'll know, oh, that person or those persons really produced the movie. I hope you'll look. People always ask me, who's your favorite director? And I think about it a lot. And I really, really enjoyed working with Sidney Pollack. Sidney Pollack won an Academy Award for producing and directing Out of Africa. He directed Tootsie. He directed this movie, This Property is Condemned, with me. And he directed a movie I got to work with him on, again, The Way We Were. Sidney knew how to work with actors, I think, better than anybody. He was really good at the technical stuff, but he really knew how to work with actors. I'll remember a moment when we were filming The Way We Were, and it's a scene just with Barbara. And Barbara's unhappy because Redford has broken up with her. And she makes a call to Redford. And it's just a shot on Barbara. And her dialogue basically is Hubble, Redford's character's name was Hubble Gardner. Hubble, I'm really upset and I needed to talk to my best friend about what happened. And you're my best friend, Hubble. And she starts to cry. Well, a lot of times in movies, the makeup people come in and blow a little menthol in the actor's eyes just before you're ready to go, so that the eyes naturally tear and you get little tears. Well, most actors really don't want to do that. They want to be able to find a way to cry. And in the first take, Barbara couldn't get herself to cry. And somebody said, you want menthol? Do you want, no. Sidney said, no. And Sidney walked in and just sat with Barbara for about 5 minutes. And then said to me, because I was the assistant director, okay, roll camera. We rolled camera and we did this shot, and this shot with a slow move into Barbara's face as she's telling the story to Redford. And sure enough, tears just came down and down and down. And I know it was Sidney who got her to cry. And I watched Sidney get actors to cry, to laugh, to do what it was that he wanted. And So that's why I think Sidney was a great person to learn from. And I thought he was a terrific director. The most technical director that I ever worked with was Roman Polanski. I got, as I said, to work with him on Rosemary's Baby and Chinatown. And Roman knew more about the camera and about editing and about how it would look than any director I ever worked with. There was a lot of them that were good, but Roman was the best. I remember, as I'm sure some of you, if you ever saw the movie Chinatown, there's a scene where Polanski actually plays the part where Jack Nicholson gets his nose cut. It's a very famous scene. People always ask, how did you do that? He actually put the knife in Jack's nose and he pulled it out and blood went all over the place. I said, yeah. Nobody could figure out how to do it because Roman said, I want that knife in Jack's nose. And it was Roman that came up with the idea of putting a hinge on the end of the knife. And what he said is the hinge would go as he pulled up, it would hinge and it wouldn't cut Jack's nose because it would hinge down and back up. And it was so quick that nobody could see it. And then Roman, who played that part, had a little bladder in his hand with blood in it and a tube so that when he went like this, his hand obviously squeezed and the blood came up and down just like that. And it was fantastic. And on the first take, it looked great. But in those days, we didn't have video playback. We just, from the naked eye, were all watching and everybody went, terrific. And Roman said, yeah, terrific. But I got to do it again just to be sure. And Jack's going, you going to put that knife in my nose again? Roman said, yeah. So he does it a second time. It looked good. Not as good as the first time, but it looked good. And Roman said, no, I got to do it. One more. One more. We did about 12 takes till Jack finally said, that's it. That's enough. And when you watch the movie, take one is in the film. So it was great. Now, there's one other technical Chinatown story, which I love, which not sure Jack loves it. After the movie was finished, and it's 3 days after the movie's done, we've seen all the dailies, so we know everything is fine. We had one shot left to do. And it's a shot where in that same night where Jack's nose is cut, prior to that, Jack hears water. He jumps into a culvert, and all of a sudden he hears water rushing, and the water comes and pushes Jack right up against a fence. And he's got to climb over this chain link fence, but the water throws him up against it. Well, Roman wanted the camera on this side of the chain link fence, and he wanted to see Jack come actually right into camera with the water pushing him. And then as Jack was climbing up, we'd crane up and see the whole thing. Well, Jack said, is it going to be strong enough to push me in there? I mean, I'm not going to get hurt, am I? Oh, no. Everything's going to be fine, Jack. So our special effects man had something which we call a dump, a water dump. And we're ready. We roll the camera. Jack's crawling in there. We dump the water, and the water, I don't know if you've ever been on a wave and how a wave or a surfboard can push you in. Well, it rammed Jack right into the chain link fence. And Jack climbed up and over, and we said, cut. And Roman said, I think I want to go. And Jack said, that's a wrap, guys. See you at the wrap party. We did it once, and it worked. So that was another pretty fun Chinatown story. I bet you didn't know some of the stuff that I'm teaching you today, and I hope you didn't know this stuff, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. I want to tell you about the man who I'm going to interview as my first interview. His name is John Wells. He's an American producer, writer, director. He is best known for being a showrunner and executive producer of television series ER, The Third Watch, The West Wing, Southland, Shameless. Shameless was on for like years, as was ER, Animal Kingdom, and right now, The Pit. He has 7 Emmys. He's won 31 other times and has 48 nominations. He's an amazing, amazing guy. And he, like me, is on the board of a very, very important group called the Motion Picture and Television Fund. It was started in 1921 by none other than Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, and Douglas Fairbanks to take care of the people in the industry. It's a charity, a nonprofit. And their mantra was, we take care of our own. And now, over 100 years later, that charity is still taking care of everyone in the motion picture industry. So I hope you'll come back and listen to John Wells talk about his career, which is amazing. And I hope you've enjoyed this little talk about my life in the entertainment business. And I hope you'll see why I think, for me, it's been a magic time. See you next time.